Let's look at the intro to I Can't Be Satisfied by Muddy Waters. There are some great versions of this. There's an acoustic version from the 1940s on the Stovall Plantation recordings by Alan Lomax. There's the famous version of the 1950s, and there's also a later version with Johnny Winter in the 80s. So some great versions to pick from. The one we're going to look at now is the 1950s one. So it's a blues in G. We're in open G tuning. I've got the slide on my little finger. Let's start. So we start up at the 12th fret. We're going to slide into the first string. And you put some vibrato on that. And then we're going to go on to the next string, same fret, but we're going to slide in again. There's less vibrato in that case. And then the last note is on the third string, 12th fret. And that one's kept short. So vibrato on the first one. And in slow motion. Just trying to really get the intonation, get them in tune, slide into those notes. If they ring into each other, it's not a disaster, just adds to the vibe. And then what he does at the end of that, the end of this first phrase, he slides down to the third fret, plays two strings just with his thumb, just kind of strumming, and then he catch the first string open and then play those same two strings 5 and 4 open. So you could do it with your thumb and finger and then use another finger on the open string, like the third finger. I think it really doesn't matter if you catch two strings or one string there. So I would be tempted to try and do it with the thumb and a finger. I think you'll get there quicker. So if you put all that together, you've got, and in slow motion. So you've got this high phrase answered by a low phrase. It's a beautiful way of balancing out what he's playing musically. Now the next phrase is the same. There's slightly less of a staccato note on the third string, so there's that's not so short, but other than that it's the same kind of phrase, and really I'm sure he would play it differently every time, so just think of it as the same phrase. So again, just brushing with your thumb on strings 5 and 4. I'm kind of changing whether I use my middle finger or my third finger for the first string, but generally it would be the middle finger. And you can slide in with a bit of aggression, with a bit of energy there. If, as I say, if you catch all three strings, it's really not going to matter. So that's the first line, just repeating that phrase twice. So I'll play those two phrases. And if you get a little slide coming down when you go to in between those two sections, again, it's not a disaster. It adds to the energy of the performance. So the next phrase is a little bit like the first phrase to start with, but he repeats the second note. So, and he puts a lot of vibrato on the fourth note. So on that note there. Okay, and that's held just about to the end of the bar, and then he does a. So the next little bit is the first. There's three notes there. The first and the third are short, so and then come down, and then open and put your finger back on it. So I'm using my first finger for all of that. So there's just longer on the 3rd fret, but the 12th fret and the open string are short. So if I put all that together, you've got. So just trying to get that contrast. Again, you can choose how fussy you want to be about this. You can try and play it exactly like he does, which I think is great, because you really step inside the way that he plays. If you try and match it exactly. That said, I don't think he would play it the same every time. So I think it's also good just to, get what he's doing, but then feel free to interpret it as you wish. And a lot of these staccato notes and things are just practicalities. It's just, how do I get from this end of the fretboard down to here without it being a mess, or how do I get there in time? So you'll find, you kind of end up doing these things anyway. So if I play from the beginning, we've got. And again a bit slower. And then it goes to the 4 chord. So now basically we're aiming for the 5th fret. We're in open G, so the 4 chord is at the 5th fret. And he anticipates that with basically the phrase here. You can use your thumb and your first finger to hit both strings, or the more important note is the one on the 4th string. So if I just play that, it would go, and then the 5th fret. It's vibrato, it's a long note. What he does is he catches that other string as well. So you go. So again, that could be a brush with your thumb, which I think is more likely, or you could use thumb and index finger. Then you do hit that note again, and then we drop down, and this is where things get interesting. So I'll come back to that in a sec. So we're just simply leading up to the 4 chord. And listen to his vibrato, try and match it. His vibrato is quite fast and narrow. My natural vibrato isn't as narrow and as fast. But again, if you want to match him exactly, really listen to the vibrato. And a really good thing to do is actually use some slow down software and slow it down and really hear exactly what he's doing. I've spent countless hours doing that with vibrato, both in slide and conventional guitar playing. It's a really good way of just trying to really understand what they're doing. Now, so I'll play it from the beginning up to there. So. So again, as I'm suggesting, I'm taking some liberties here. I'm doing things slightly differently sometimes, but when you first learn it, I think really stick with what's written or what he plays. Now this is where things get interesting. So after he's done, then he drops down to the 3rd fret, and here he then plays the next note fretted and then open. So I remember this being a huge moment when I worked this out originally, just to understand that note sounds different when he plays it, that note on the 5th string. So it's got a very different quality. It also allows you to get that phrase together a little bit faster. But there are a number of places in this song where he does this. And I remember at the time I was still under the impression that if you were playing slide, you had to play every note with the slide. If you're playing a song that you're playing slide on, and this was just a little hint into the fact that actually no, I've got these other fingers, I can do other things with them as well. and it sounds really cool having that slight difference in sound as well. So he's going, this is in bar 11, he's going, and then going to bar 12. Then this next phrase, so he's playing the open third string, and then top 2 string. And this next part where he slides down from the 2nd fret, it's not quite on the 2nd fret, it's slightly sharp. So it's a little bit like conventional guitar playing. You want to learn to bend notes in tune, but often the great players don't actually bend in tune. It's not that they can't, it's just for an expressive quality, they'll play slightly sharp or slightly flat. In this case, the note is slightly sharp, and then you drop it down, so it's kind of a sharp 2nd fret, somewhere just above the 2nd fret, and then drop down. So the phrase goes, and then we're going back up to the 5th fret. So now what happens in that bar, you got the open 3rd string, and you play it with your index finger, and then you just rest your finger back on it to stop it sounding. And then the next 2 notes ring into each other, the 5th fret, with vibrato. So you can let more strings ring, or just those. So you just got to find where to position you know, if you want to just only hear those strings, you want to position your thumb on the 6th string, and your fingers on the higher notes. But you could just let the whole thing ring. So all the way from the beginning up to there. So 2. The next phrase, we're going to the 5 chord, which is up at the 7th fret, and he approaches that. What's interesting here, that first 7th fret he plays with vibrato, but the next one he slides up and slides back down. So that's bar 17, that one. So he slides up with vibrato the first time, then he slides up, down, and then we're going to the 5 chord, and this time we're on the 4 chord, and we're on the 5th fret with vibrato. So from bar 15, you're gonna. So that's going to D basically, and then C, and then we're going to lead back into the G, and he's using that fretted note again, and we're back in G now, and then he's just playing a little turnaround thing. Now this note here I put fretted with a question mark. I think it's still fretted. It's a little bit harder to tell than the other ones, so I'll leave that up to you, but I tend to play it fretted. And those last 3 notes you've got to slide up to the 3rd fret, then that open string is short, and then the last one is left to ring. So all these little variations where which notes are short, which have vibrato, which are slid into, which are slid out of, all these little things do make quite a difference in terms of the interest and the musicality of the performance. So again, as I say, I think it's really worth like homing in on what he's doing and trying to get it exactly like him. And then after time, I mean, I've been playing this song quite a long time now, and I have my own kind of way that I interpret it. So it's not always perfectly as on the page, although I'm doing my hardest to keep it as strictly to the page as I can today. But you know, that's the idea, that you take it beyond just that one performance that he did of it, because if you listen to those three performances I mentioned at the beginning, the Stovall's one, the one from the 50s, and then the Johnny Winter one, he's playing it differently every time. I think actually Johnny Winter's playing this part on one of those later recordings anyway. But it's wonderful. So I'll play the whole thing through for you at a slowish tempo. So. Okay. And a little bit faster. So this is one of my favourite Muddy Waters tunes. I just love this introduction. It's one of those things I picked up early on in my slide playing, and I played it and played it. I worked it all out by ear. It took me ages. There's a huge amount of value in that. So, you know, as you get into this journey, the big challenge with the slide stuff is figuring out what tuning you're in, and then beyond that, you know, you've just got to spend the time listening to stuff. Muddy Waters played in open G, sometimes in open A, sometimes he played in open G with a capo at the 2nd fret to make it open A, but I believe later on in his career he was playing in standard tuning. This is a wonderful tune. Have fun with it. Take your time to get it as close as you can to him and his version, but then go beyond that and make it your own and really interpret it in the way that you want to. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you liked the song. Please like the video if you did, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one.